Good evening. Today we are learning Parashat Shelach. We are using our school Chumash. We are on page 799, and the Parsha last week finished with Miriam being quarantined, and after the Jewish people traveled from Hatzirot to Midbar Paran, which is close to the land of Israel. And now this week's Parsha, Moshe speaks to Hashem and says, Hashem, the Jewish people are worried. They don't have enough trust. They would like to go in and check out the land that you promised. And Moshe says, I think we should agree, hoping that if Moshe allows the Jewish people to spy out the land, the Jewish people will say, oh, if Moshe is so sure, and if God, Hashem, allowed us to go and check it out, must be, it's really good. This is the trick that salesmen use. If a buyer asks, can this gadget do this? They'll say, yeah, for sure. You want to try it? And whether it can or not, doesn't matter. They will bluff it, hoping that the buyer will not test it. But that's the psychology of it, that if you allow people to test it, it means you're sure of it. So Hashem agrees. And in verse 1, chapter 13, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, send forth men, if you please, and let them spy out the land of Canaan that I give to the children of Israel. But the trick didn't work. The Jewish people were really worried. And it wasn't enough that Hashem allowed them to go and spy out the land. They actually wanted to do it, to see it for themselves. Not enough that God tells us, go and I will help you. I want to go in and I want to make sure for myself that I know how to conquer it. If I will see that I can, I will go. If I see that it's too hard, I'm not going to go. But that was their mistake, because Hashem is telling them, you will enter the land, you will chase away all the inhabitants, and it will become your homeland. They, just like recently, they accepted the Torah. Why did the Jewish people accept the Torah? Because they said, if God is giving us something, must be it's good. Only good things come from God. They didn't even ask what's in it. Hashem gave it to us. And here Hashem is giving us the land. We should have said, yes, sure. When can we go in? Instead, they said, let's pause. Let's send in the spies, check it out. If we like the land that God is giving us, we'll go. If not, not. What do you mean? The land that God is giving, for sure, it's the best land on the whole planet. And Rashi will quote the Midrash later that the worst land in the land of Israel is 7 times better than the best land you can ever find elsewhere. So that just shows you that if God is giving you something, take it with both hands, because it must be the best possible thing in the world. But their trust was not so strong. It's easy for us to talk because we're not in that test, and actually we are. And whenever we think, should we go into the land of Israel, right away the same concerns surface. Oh, how will I make parnasa? The people that live there are not so friendly. What will be with my children? It's better for us here in America. Not so fast. We're gonna move. And for them, especially, they had to fight. There were 31 kings in the land of Israel at that time. We have to fight 31 battles. Who knows if we're gonna win all of them? And if we lose even one, what's gonna be? So it was a big test for them. So they decided to rely on their own strength. So Hashem said, one man each from his father's tribe shall you send. 12 people, one from each tribe. Moshe sent them forth from the wilderness of Paran at Hashem's command. They were all distinguished men, heads of the children of Israel were they. They were all tzaddikim. At that moment, they were all righteous. However, the pressure of the mission and the pressure of the Jewish people put on them, make sure you see for yourself the truth. Make sure you bring us an honest report. There was something they couldn't handle, and it constantly put pressure on them, and they said, no, we don't think that it's possible to conquer this land. And a list is given of the 12 people, and the most famous among them are Caleb and Yehoshua. Caleb at that time was 40 years old, and Yehoshua at that time was 58 years old. Now, in verse 16, Moshe called Hoshea, son of Nun, Yehoshua. Originally, his name was Hoshea, and Moshe added a yud to his name. This is already not the first time that we see in the Torah names are changed. We know Abraham's name is changed by adding a hey to him. Sarai is changed to Sarah. We take out the yud and we add a hey. And here again, Hoshea is changed to Yehoshua. A yud is added at the beginning. So we have now three examples. Avraham, a letter is added in the middle. Sarai, a letter is exchanged at the end. And Yehoshua, a letter is added at the beginning. So all kinds of additions are possible. Why do we change someone's name? When his destiny changes. Until now, he had this mission. Now he is taking on a different job. So he needs a different soul, a different name that really is designing his role, his position in society. Avraham was only a leader of a small area of Aram. Avraham became Av Hamon Goim, became the father of the entire world. Sarai, she was Sarai, means my princess, my leader. She became Sarah, the leader of the entire world. And Yehoshua, the same thing. A Yud was added to his name at the beginning. Yud represents spirituality, represents Hashem, to show that Hashem will save you. Yehoshua means Hashem will save. Why? Because now Yehoshua, from being someone unknown, is going to become the leader. He is the one that is going to try to save the Jews. It didn't work, but he tried. And later Yehoshua is going to become the leader after Moshe. So Moshe's prayer and the change of name for Yehoshua worked. and Yoshua was saved from the council, the conspiracy of the spies. And Caleb was strong enough. Moshe saw that he doesn't need any help. He will be able to overcome the test, and he did. Now, Moshe tells the spies what to look out for. In verse 18, see the land. How is it? And the people that dwell in it. Is it strong or weak? Is it few or numerous? And how is the land in which it dwells? Now we turn to page 801, and Moshe continues with the mission. Is it a good land or is it bad? And how are the cities in which it dwells? Are in open cities or in fortified cities? And how is the land? Now, for the third time, Moshe is telling them to check out the land, but a different aspect of the land. Is it fertile or is it lean? Are there trees in it or not? So Rashi says the first time when it mentions how is the land, it means check out the point in the land that is the least protected. Where can we start the attack? The second time it says how is the land, it explains, is it good or bad? Does it have good water sources? And the third time it says how is the land, it refers to the ability of land to grow healthy fruit and grain. You shall strengthen yourself and take from the fruit of the land. And it was a season of the first ripe grapes. Now we know that the spies came back on the 9th of Av, and they were traveling around the land for 40 days. That means they left the camp on um, the 40 days before. Um, it was not the 17th of Tammuz, because 17th of Tammuz is 3 weeks before the 9th of Av. So it was 1 week, it was 9 days before 17th of Tammuz. So let's say approximately the 8th of Tammuz they left, and that was in the middle of the summer. So the Torah says it was the beginning of the first ripe grapes. Or it could be that already when they were on their way back, a couple weeks later, towards the second half of the summer, that is the season that they picked the ripe fruits. So now the mission is described. Verse 21, page 801. They ascended, they went up and spied out the land. And the way it describes is that they first went across the land from the east to west. Then they went along the shore of Mediterranean Sea north, and then they came back down. So they went through the land widthwise and lengthwise twice. And Caleb was able to go to Hebron by himself, and he prayed there that he should the merit of the forefathers should help him to overcome the challenge and be able to say the truth about the land. Okay, so they took some grapes, they took pomegranates, and they took figs. And our sages described that these fruits were huge. And we learned it from the verse that says they took one cluster of grapes in verse 23 and carried it on a double pole with two people on each side. Or some commentators say two people on each side of each pole, which will make it either four people at least were needed to carry one cluster of grapes. Or, according to some commentators, you needed 8 people to carry one cluster of grapes. How heavy this cluster was. Each grape was like a watermelon, and the cluster was like a huge, huge cow. And you needed one person to carry one fig, and one person to carry another fig, and one person to carry one pomegranate, huge pomegranate, and another person to carry a huge pomegranate. So that makes that all of them were occupied. According to some, Caleb and Yoshua did not want to carry anything. So 8 people were for the grapes, one person for pomegranate, and one person for figs. And Caleb and Yoshua said, we know why they're bringing it, because they want to scare people. When people see such huge fruit, they will be shocked and say, what? It's a land of giants. If the fruit are so huge, imagine what people are like and animals are like. We cannot conquer that land. So Yoshua and Caleb said, we're not touching this fruit. This fruit is being carried with a bad intention. Now we're in verse 25. They returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. And verse 27, the spies bring the bad report. They reported to Moshe and said, we arrived at the land to which you sent us. And indeed, it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. And that was the introduction. Yes, it's a land that is very fertile. It flows with milk and honey, and look at the fruit. And whenever there is something good, there are many who want to get it. There are many who are fighting for it. And that's how they continued. Verse 28 on page 803. But the people that dwells in the land is powerful, the most powerful in the whole world. That's why they live there. Survival of the fittest. The cities are fortified and very great. And we also saw some children of giant. And plus, Amalek dwells in the area of the south, and the Hittite and the Yebusite and the Amorite dwell in the mountain, and Canaanite dwells by the sea on the bank of the Jordan. They mentioned all these names in order to scare the Jewish people. But Caleb tried to reassure the people. In verse 30, Caleb silenced the people toward Moshe and said, we shall surely ascend and conquer it, for we can surely do it. Don't worry. But it was too late. Caleb is shouted down. Verse 31, but the man who had ascended with him said, we cannot ascend to that people, for it is too strong for us. They brought forth to the children of Israel an evil report on the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have passed to spy it out is a land that eats its inhabitants. It devours its inhabitants. Why? What do you mean? It has such beautiful fruit. The people who live there are giants. What do you mean? It devours its inhabitants. So that was an obvious lie. But in reality, it was their interpretation of what they saw. They saw that there were a lot of funerals. And they said, yeah, the people are very robust, but they probably die young. They're huge, but they probably don't live long from eating such dangerous fruit. The fruit grows them and blows them up until they burst and they die. Whatever their fear was, they saw a lot of funerals. But Hashem said, what do you mean? You're scared of funerals. You should be celebrating that your enemies are burying their warriors. Why are you crying? Oh, we are afraid. So that shows you that whatever is on a person's mind, that's how he interprets all events. They wanted to prove that Hashem is against them, that the land cannot be conquered. So everything they saw, that's how they interpreted. Oh, the fruits are big, must be it's dangerous. Or the people are tall, must be we will not be able to conquer them. Or we see people are dying, instead of celebrating, oh, must be if we come in, that's what's going to happen to us. Everything in the negative. In reality, a person has to realize that everything that is happening is designed by Hashem for you. No reason to be upset. Why did he say to me? Why did they cancel on me? They were not reliable. They delayed this and that. In reality, everything is for your benefit. If somebody was not reliable, say thank you. Hashem didn't want me to deal with him. If the delivery came late, say thank you. Earlier wasn't good. Now it's perfect time. I remember so many times in multiple places that I worked in, very often they were not able to pay us the salary. And at the beginning I thought, why can't I work and get paid on time? But then I was surprised that at a later point, a few months later, when I really needed the money, all of a sudden the money came in. And I said, wow, now I understand why Hashem delayed the payment. Because if I would get the money earlier, I would spend it. And when I really needed the money wouldn't be there. And so Hashem said, my dear child, please be patient. You don't need the money now, let me keep it. When you need it, I will send it. So the same thing here. Caleb and Yoshua saw the land and they said, yeah, it looks suspicious, but Hashem said it's going to be good, so we have to interpret it good. Big fruit means our families will have a lot to eat. Giants means it's going to be easier to conquer them. Instead of catching a lot of small people, we'll just catch one big person, kill him, that's it, we're done for today. And the fact that they're burying people, it's good for us, means that Hashem sent them a virus and slowly they're getting weak, and when we come, they'll just give up. And the fact that their cities are fortified, it's good for us. We're going to conquer them and we're going to live in those cities, and we don't have to build anything. They already built it for us. We shall surely ascend and conquer it, for we can surely do it. That's the attitude every person should have. We can surely do it. Why? Because Hashem said that we should. But Caleb is shouted down, and they said, we cannot ascend. The people are too strong for us. The land, and they're saying contradictory things. They're saying the land that we saw devours its inhabitants, and the next thing they say, all the people that we saw in it were huge. What do you mean? The land is not good, people are dying there, and at the same time they're very healthy. Doesn't make sense. But that's what happens. When people are in denial, they deny all truth and they interpret everything according to the reality that is playing in their head. And they continue. There we saw the Nephilim, who were the sons of the giant. And we were like grasshoppers in our eyes. so we were in their eyes as well. So this shows us this point, that whatever you think about yourself, that's what you think others are thinking about you. The spies looked at the huge giants, they looked at themselves, they said, we're so tiny, we're not going to be able to. Must be we're like tiny grasshoppers. And must be they see us the same way. Instead of saying, yeah, they're big, we're small, but Hashem will make it that they should be scared of us. When they see us, they'll see the Jewish people, they'll run for their life. They're going to jump into the Atlantic Ocean and swim to America. When I have low view of myself, I think that the other person has the same view. If I don't love myself, then I think that other people don't love me. If everyone would learn from Caleb and Yoshua and say, we shall surely ascend and conquer it, for we can surely do it. Why? Not because we're haughty, but because Hashem is with us. Yeah, the giant is big, but Hashem is bigger. Our enemies are numerous, but Hashem can kill them all at once. Chapter 14 on page 803. People panic and complain against Moshe and Aaron. The entire assembly raised up and issued its voice. The people wept that night. All the children of Israel murmured against Moshe and Aaron. And they said, we should have died in Egypt. Or we should have died in the wilderness before we came to this land. Why are we going into the land of Israel? To die by the sword in a war? And our wives and our children should be taken captives? It's probably better to go back to Egypt. And they said to one another, let us appoint a leader and let us return to Egypt. And this is very dangerous, what's happening. Just like by the golden calf, they said, we don't have a leader, let's appoint a new leader. And they made an idol. And they were almost annihilated. Now almost the same thing is happening. They're so confused and scared, they want to make a new leader, potentially a new idol. If that happens, that's it. No more. No more Jewish people, Chas v'shalom. So Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces in prayer. Turn to page 805. And verse 6, Yoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Yefuneh, tore their garments in mourning. And they tried one more time to speak to the people. They spoke to the entire assembly of the children of Israel, saying, the land that we passed through to spy it out, the land is very, very good. If Hashem desires us, He will bring us to this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. But do not rebel against Hashem. You should not fear the people of the land, for they are like our bread. We're going to eat them up. Their protection has departed from them. Hashem is with us. Do not fear them. Yes, it's true that until now they were the most powerful man on earth. They were the giants. They came to the best land and occupied it, and no one could kick them out. But if Hashem desires us, and He showed us that He does desire us, by taking us out of Egypt, making miracles, and bringing us to this land, and giving us the Torah, all we have to do is go in, and they're going to be our bread. But it doesn't help. Verse 10, the entire assembly said to pelt them with stones. They picked up rocks and said, let's go get them. Imagine, they wanted to throw stones at Moshe and Aaron. And in order to protect Moshe and Aaron from the mob, the glory of Hashem appeared in the tent of meeting to all the children of Israel. And now Hashem is angry. Hashem said to Moshe, "How long will this people provoke me? And how long will they not have faith in me? Despite all the signs that I have performed in their midst, I will smite them with the plague and annihilate them. And I shall make you, Moshe, a greater and more powerful nation than them." Very similar to the aftermath of the golden calf. And again, Moshe defends the Jews. Moshe said to Hashem, "Then, if you kill them, Egypt will hear, and they will say, we go to page 16. What will Egyptians say? Because, verse 16, page 807, because Hashem lacked the ability to bring this people to the land that he had sworn to give them, he slaughtered them in the wilderness. Imagine, that's what Egyptians are going to say. After destroying Egypt, and after performing so many miracles and splitting the sea, and after giving them Torah on Mount Sinai, and the entire year they were sustained by the man. This is already in the summer of the second year. So many miracles, and they died. Egyptians will make a mistake that God is not so powerful. Chas v'shalom. He was able to take them from Egypt, but when he encountered the powerful idols of the land of Canaan, he couldn't do it. And in order to save his face, he killed the people, that no one should remember them anymore. And now, may the strength of my Lord be magnified, as you have spoken, saying. And now Moshe invokes the attributes of mercy of Hashem. Hashem, slow to anger, abundant in kindness, forgiver of iniquity and willful sin, and who cleanses but does not cleanse completely, recalling the iniquity of parents upon children to the third and fourth generations. Forgive the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of your kindness, and as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now. This is not the first time you're forgiving them, so please forgive them one more time. Exercise your compassion, your mercy, your kindness, and for your name, that your name shouldn't be desecrated. Yes, the Jewish people don't deserve it, but don't desecrate your name. And what Moshe said made sense. Yes, after making himself dependent on the Jewish people, Hashem cannot eliminate the Jews anymore. The whole world will laugh and say, "What? You took them out, promising them to bring them to the land of Israel, and you killed them?" Yes, it's their fault, but they don't know it. So they're going to think that you didn't keep your promise. And in verse 20, Hashem said, "I have forgiven because of your words. But as I live, and the glory of Hashem shall fill the entire world, that all the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, and they have tested me these 10 times and have not listened to my voice, they will not see the land that I have sworn to give to their forefathers. And all who anger me shall not see it. Only my servant Caleb, I shall bring him to the land to which he visited, and his offspring shall possess it." Now, here Hashem decreed death upon the spies. But in addition, Hashem is hinting to the death of all who anger me. And it's coming up that the decree will be made that all Jewish males between 20 and 60 who were supposed to go into the land of Israel and supposed to conquer it, and they were scared, so they lost their chance. They're not going to go into the land anymore. Tomorrow, in verse 25, turn and journey toward the wilderness in the direction of the Sea of Reeds, where you came from. Go back to the sea that I split for you over a year ago, to remind yourself of the miracles that I did for you. Now we turn to page 809, the decree, 28, verse 28. Say to them, as I live, the word of Hashem, I shall not do to you as, if I shall not do to you as you have spoken in my ears. Which means Hashem says, what you said, what you were afraid of, that's what's going to happen to you. We say, the fear of man will come upon him. Whatever a person is scared of, he wishes upon himself. Because if we don't trust Hashem, we'll say, probably this bad thing is going to happen. So Hashem says, you don't trust me? You think that's going to happen? Okay, if that's what you think is going to happen, that's what's going to happen. So, as you have spoken in my ears, in this wilderness shall your carcasses drop. You said, it would be better for us to die in the wilderness. I'll bring you back to the wilderness to let you die there. All of you who were counted in any of your numberings from 20 years of age and above, whom you provoked against me, except for Caleb son of Yefuneh and Yoshua bin Nun. And also your young children. You said, our young children will be taken captives. They're not going to go into the land of Israel. I'll show you that they will be able to go into the land. But you're not going to be bringing them. I shall bring them. They shall know the land that you have despised. But your carcasses shall drop in the wilderness. Now, when will that happen? Verse 33. Your children will roam in the wilderness for 40 years and bear your guilt, until the last of your carcasses in the wilderness. Like the number of days that you spied out the land, 40 days, a day for a year shall you bear your iniquities. 40 years, and you shall comprehend straying from me. You will see how bad it is not to trust Hashem and to go away from Him. So Hashem decreed 1 year for every day they spent there. However, He was merciful, and He counted the time that they spent in the wilderness since coming out of Egypt in the time that they served in the wilderness already. So they only had another 38 and a half years to go, not 40 years. Now, verse 37 says, what happened to the 10 bad spies? The people who spread the evil report about the land died in a plague before Hashem. They died right then and there. Other people died over the course of 40 years. And the way it happened was that since only people from 20 to 60 had to die, so whoever reached the age of 60 would die. And like this, slowly, everyone over the 40-year period of time, everyone perished. Now we turn to page 811. Moshe informs the people of the decree. Verse 39, Moshe spoke these words to all of the children of Israel, and the people mourned exceedingly. But instead of doing teshuvah, what did they do? A group of Jewish people wanted to force their entry into the Eretz Yisrael. They awoke early in the morning, and they ascended toward the mountaintop, saying, "We are ready. We shall ascend to the place to which Hashem has spoken, for we have sinned." Say, yes, yes, we're doing teshuvah. But really, they have nothing to lose. They know they're going to die anyway. So they're saying, okay, Hashem, okay, fine, give us another chance. We're going to go. If we're going to die anyway, might as well go. Hashem says, it's too late. Verse 41, Moshe said to them, "Why do you transgress the word of Hashem? When Hashem tells you go, you say we cannot go. Now Hashem tells you go back, don't go, and you say yes, yes, we're going to go. Why do you transgress the word of Hashem? It will not succeed." Whenever we transgress the word of Hashem, it's not going to succeed. Do not ascend, for Hashem is not in your midst. And if you do, you're going to be smitten before your enemies. And you will fall by the sword because you have turned away from Hashem. Hashem will not be with you. But they still go. They don't listen. Verse 44, but they defiantly ascended the mountaintop, while the ark of Hashem's covenant and Moshe did not move from the midst of the camp. And they lost. The Amalekite and the Canaanite who dwelled on the mountain descended, and they struck them and pounded them until Hormah. Now the story of the spies concludes. The Jewish people go back, and they spend another 38 years in the desert. Now, in chapter 15, we have laws of mincha, which is flour offerings, and libations, which are nesachim. Libations in English means when you pour wine on the altar. So in addition to bringing a korban, let's say you bring an olah, a lamb, or a goat, or a ram, or a cow. Olah, all of them have to be males. In addition to burning the entire animal on the altar, on the mizbeach, you also have to bring flour offering and wine. And the Torah lists how much flour and how much oil to be mixed with flour and how much wine to bring. So we'll do it, just the summary of it, the whole paragraph, chapter 15, describes it. So if a person brings a sheep as an offering, he has to bring 1/10 of ephah of flour, 1/4 of hin of oil, and 1/4 of hin wine. If he brings a ram is bigger than a sheep, he has to bring 2/10 of flour instead of 1/10, 1/3 of hin of oil instead of 1/4, and 1/3 of hin of wine instead of 1/4. And if he brings a bull, a much larger animal, he has to bring 3/10 of ephah of flour, and a half a hin of oil, and a half a hin of wine. And for us to know what these measurements are, an ephah is about 10 gallons. So when we say 1/10 of ephah, it's 1 gallon of flour. Let's say like a 5-pound bag of flour, just approximately. So for a sheep, you would bring a 5-pound bag of flour. For a ram, you would bring 2 5-pound bags of flour. And for a bull, you would bring 3 5-pound bags of flour, approximately. And for oil, 1 hin is about 1.5 liters. So 1.5 liters, that's about 6 to 8 cups. Let's say 8 cups. So for sheep, you would bring 2 cups of oil for 1 bag of flour, and 2 cups of wine to pour on the altar. For the ram, you would bring approximately 3 cups of oil and 3 cups of wine for the 2 bags of flour. And for the bull, you would bring 4 cups of oil for the 3 bags of flour and 4 cups of wine to pour on the altar. That's the summary. Now we turn to page 813. In verse 14 through 16, we learn the law for converts. And the Torah says, the same law as it is for the Jews applies for the converts, specifically for bringing korbanot, offerings, but it applies to all Torah laws. We have the same set of rules for natives, for citizens, and for converts. When a proselyte sojourns with you, proselyte means a convert. Verse 15 continues, the same decree shall be for you and for the proselyte. Verse 16, one teaching and one judgment shall be for you and for the proselyte who sojourns among you. No discrimination. Whoever joins the Jewish people, they're treated the same way. Now we have the mitzvah of challah. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying in verse 18, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come to the land to which I bring you, and you want to eat from the bread of the land, you have to set aside a portion for Hashem. Verse 20, as the first of your kneading, you shall set aside a loaf as a portion. Now, the word challah means a loaf, bulka, a roll. And that's what we do. If a woman makes dough, according to some approximately 3 pounds, according to some 5 pounds, when the dough is ready, before baking it, she separates a roll and bakes it separately and gives it to Kohen. Or she can give raw dough to Kohen, and the Kohen will bake it for himself. Nowadays we don't do it because we are impure, the challah becomes impure, and Kohen is impure, so he cannot eat it anyway. So we wrap it and put it in trash, or some people burn it. So set aside a loaf as a portion. Verse 21, from the first of your kneading shall you give a portion to Hashem for your generations. Now, in verse 22, we switch the topic and we speak about unintentional idol worship. If you make a mistake and you do not perform all of these commandments which Hashem has spoken to Moshe, now on page 815. So there are different kinds of unintentional idol worship. First, we speak about public unintentional idol worship. Verse 24, if because of the eyes of the assembly, which refers to Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court is called the eyes of the congregation because they see where to go and they instruct us. It was done unintentionally, which means if they made a wrong decision, they thought that a certain action is not idol worship, and later they found out that it is. So it was done unintentionally. The entire assembly shall prepare one young bull as an elevation offering, and the meal offering and the libation, and one he-goat as a sin offering. Since the entire assembly sinned, following the ruling of the Supreme Court, they have to bring one offering, a bull for Olah and a goat for Chatat. Now, in verse 27, we speak about individual unintentional idol worship. If one person sins unintentionally, he shall offer a female goat within its first year as a sin offering. That's it. Now, the law for intentional idol worshiper. What if someone serves idols, does avodah zarah intentionally. Verse 30. A person who shall act high-handedly. High-handedly means proudly, without shame, in front of people. That person shall be cut off from among his people. Karet, spiritual excision. Now we turn to page 817. A sad story about Shabbat desecration in the wilderness. The children of Israel were in the wilderness, and they found a man, a Jewish man, gathering wood on the Shabbat day. Why was he gathering wood? It was warm in the desert. He didn't need it for warmth. He didn't even need it to make fire to cook food because they had man, which was edible raw if they wanted to. Plus, Hashem said, if you want to eat man cooked, cook it on Friday. Why was he gathering wood on Shabbat? Those who found him gathering wood brought him to Moshe and Aaron and to the entire assembly. They placed him in custody, for it had not been clarified what should be done to him. But since his sin was intentional, as we said, he didn't forget, because he didn't really need the wood. Why was he doing it? For fun? No. The reason he was doing it because he wanted to desecrate Shabbat. How do we know? The Midrash says that this man was thinking to himself, the Jewish people have Shabbat, but they don't know how serious it is. And they might treat it lightly. And in the future, they might slowly start not keeping it. I would like to sacrifice myself to teach them a lesson. I will desecrate Shabbat on purpose, but not because I want to go against Hashem, because I want to sanctify Hashem. I want to do a sin and be punished for it to teach everyone a lesson, how severe desecrating Shabbat is. So I'm going to go and do what I don't need. I don't need this wood. I'm going to gather anyway, in front of everyone, so that they punish me. But hopefully the Jewish people will learn from that to be careful. Hashem said to Moshe, the man shall be put to death. The entire assembly shall pelt him with stones outside the camp. Now, did this man do the right thing? No. Even if you want to do a sin for the sake of Hashem, it's still a sin. Hashem said, don't do it. And I say, Hashem, but I want to do it for you. But Hashem says, don't do it for me. Just don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. And the person says, but Hashem, I have a reason why I want to do it. Let me do it for you. This is similar to someone who, you come to a person and you say, oh, you're probably hungry. Let me give you food. And the person says, no, I'm not hungry. Don't give me food. I don't want. And you tell him, no, you're probably hungry. Here, eat. He says, no, I don't want. And you say, no, eat. I know better. Eat. And he gives you food. Say, I told you I'm not hungry. No, eat. I'm gonna hold your nose. You're gonna open your mouth. I'm gonna stuff you. But I'm saying I don't want. No, I know better than you. How can you say I know better than Hashem? This was the same sin that Adam Arishon did. He said, Hashem, you're telling me not to eat from the forbidden fruit, but Hashem, that's too easy. Give me something bigger. Let me transgress and let me prove to you that even though I'm gonna go on a very low level and I'm gonna have to now enter the world, dangerous world with Yetzer Hara, and I'm gonna fight for the next 6,000 years, I want to prove to you that I can do it. Hashem said, don't do it. I don't need your proofs. I'm just telling you, listen to me once. If you If you listen to me, that's going to be good. Listen to me once and it's enough. Don't have to show me that you can listen to me 6,000 years. And Adam thought that, no, that's better. I want to listen to Hashem, and my children forever will listen to Hashem for the next 6,000 years. We're going to do so many mitzvot. Hashem said, no, no, please don't. Just don't eat from the fruit. So the same thing here. He said, let me be the first one to desecrate Shabbat. And Hashem said, no, that's not the right logic. And verse 36 says, the entire assembly removed him to the outside of the camp, and they pelted him with stones, and he died as Hashem had commanded Moshe. Very sad story. Something that could have been avoided. And it says that if the Jewish people would keep that Shabbat, they would be redeemed. Even though the decree was made that they should spend next 38 years in the desert, which we could say corresponds to the 39 melachot, 38 and a half years, almost 39. If they would just keep Shabbat properly, Hashem would say, okay, fine, you show me that you're devoted, you follow me, I'm not going to kill you, you don't have to wait 40 years, just go in. And because he wanted to do better, but he still went against Hashem, look how much damage he did. We're still here. And that's what a person has to realize. It says that every person has to view himself as if the whole world is on a balance. If he does good, if he does a mitzvah, the whole world will tilt to good. You're saving the whole world with one act. And if he does a sin, the whole world will tilt to negative, to sin, to death. And that's what happened. If this one person did not desecrate Shabbat, the entire Jewish people would be redeemed. Now, someone is asking a question. Why do the Jews have to carry out the death penalty? Why can't Hashem just take the soul? It makes us more judgmental. So that's a very good question. We live in a society where teachers and parents are discouraged from giving punishment. And we live in a society where they let prisoners out of prison. And they go and they kill, and they rape, and they rob, and they punch people in the eye. So if we want to be soft with criminals, we are really cruel to innocent people. And that's what the Torah says. If you withhold physical punishment from your child at the time when he needs it, you are being cruel to him, because you are teaching him to be irresponsible. You're teaching him that everything goes, he can do whatever he wants, and there is no punishment. And later, it will cause him death, because it will progress until, without self-control, he will go too far, and either someone will kill him, or he will cause his own death. So it's better to administer a smaller punishment as a prevention for larger problem. So too, Hashem said, you have to administer the punishment to criminals, because that will serve as a warning, as a precaution to other people. If I take his soul, nobody's going to know why he died. But if the entire assembly gathers together and they participate in it, and they will see, yes, this person did something wrong. He raped a woman. He did avodah zarah. He murdered someone. He did this and that. Evil, big transgressions. And this way we will stop it at the root. And it's not going to continue into what's happening in the world right now. That evil is prospering. Why? Because those who have power to stop it are too soft on evildoers. As harsh as it may sound, those that are uh, harsh towards criminals, they're kind towards innocent. And those that are kind towards criminals are cruel towards innocent. So that's the simple answer why we personally need to show that we are against this behavior. We have to participate in the punishment. Okay, and now we are by the final topic for this week's Parsha, and that is the third paragraph of Shema, the portion about tzitzit. Verse 37 on page 817. Hashem said to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel, and they shall make for themselves tzitzit, which means strings coming out from the garment on the corners of their garments throughout their generations. And they shall place upon the tzitzit of each corner a thread of turquoise, of blue wool. And you will see it and remember all the commandments of Hashem and perform them. And how does it help us to remember? First of all, when you see that your garments are not the same as the garments of a non-Jew, that will remind you, oh, I'm different. The way we dress is different, the way we behave, we talk, everything is different about us. So those strings that come out from our garments remind us that we're different. Same thing, by the way, is with peot. One of the reasons why Jewish people, many communities have peot, strings, extra things, side locks coming out of their head, is to show that we are different. The Goyim don't have it. They don't have these things coming out, funny things, and we do, means we're different. In fact, in Yemen, the Yemenite Jews, instead of calling these side locks peot, they call them simanim. Simanim means signs. They are the signs of a Jew. Because in Arab countries, Muslim countries, everyone wears head covering, everyone wears a long robe. So how do you know the difference between a Jew and a Goy? If when you see the side locks, oh, that's a siman, that's a sign that he is a Jew. So that's number one. Number two is symbolically the word tzitzit, tzadik yud, tzadik yud taf, is a gematria 600, and on each string of tzitzit, each corner we have 5 knots, because we have 4 sections with knots in between and on top on the bottom. So 5 knots plus there are 4 strings that we double, so they come out with 8 strings. 8 strings, 5 knots, that's 13. And the gematria of the word tzitzit is 600, so you have 613. And that's what a Jew is supposed to remember. I'm looking at the tzitzit, it reminds me I'm different than a Jew, than a Goy, and gematria plus the knots plus the strings is 613. We have 613 mitzvot. Now, the Torah continues on the last line of 8:17. And do not explore after your heart and after your eyes, after which you stray. And this is the reason why this Torah portion is in this Parsha. Because the Jewish people sinned with the spies who went after their eyes and after their hearts. Whatever desire they wanted, that's what they saw, and they went after it. So the Torah tells us, don't go after your hearts and after your eyes, which you normally do go after. Which means don't follow sinful thoughts and desires. If that's what you want, bad things, then your eyes will find it for you. Chas v'shalom. And now we turn to page 819. So that you may remember and perform all my commandments and be holy to your God. I am Hashem, your God, who has removed you from the land of Egypt to be a God unto you. I am Hashem, your God. And with this, we conclude Parashat Shelach. Thank you for listening. Shabbat Shalom u'mevorach.